listeners. Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Loinerson. Joining me today, old legs, old legs, old legs, old legs, old legs.
I'm back!
You're back! I'm so pumped. You know, old legs has been out. He had a bit of an injury.
I'm back, and I can't even say that I'm back and better than ever.
We don't know if we'll ever see the same old legs again.
I did hurt my leg.
Yeah,
pretty bad.
Enough.
I'm living up to my name. I had a little incident out shredding some gnar.
I mean,
some gnarly slopes out west. Actually, it wasn't very gnarly,
but there was pow to be had.
Pow to be had. I wish I could have been doing something a little more interesting, but it was just kind of a run of the mill
freak non-contact
fracture of my patella and ruptured patellar tendon. So but hey, it hasn't stopped me from watching some movies.
Yeah, in fact,
it's probably increased the number of movies that I've seen.
You're getting a treat here, listeners, because normally you don't know how hard it is to get Jerdo to sit in one place for.
Typically, when we do these kind of lists, like I've seen maybe a handful, maybe like 3 or 4, and then I'm just riffing and pretending like I watched the other ones.
Yeah,
but
like
I can say I have truly seen all the movies on my list.
Yep, and he's claiming he remembers all of them.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part.
There's a couple that you're like, I'm pretty sure that I saw that one.
Yeah,
I was there for it.
Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So how we're going to do it is we're just going to kind of trade off. I'll do my bottom 2. He'll do it next 2, back and forth, blah, 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 blah. So this year was a good year.
I thought it was a great year.
Yeah. But it was kind of interesting. It didn't feel like a normal year for movies.
It wasn't necessarily like, I think it's like a good analogy, like kind of the way we talk about like a draft, and like I would say that this year wasn't like incredibly top heavy.
That's exactly.
But there was some really good value,
right?
Down the list, some mid-round picks. That 8 through like 15 is really close,
right?
And I think it kind of made it interesting. Again, very little preparation put into my list. I kind of went over
that enough.
Right, yeah, I can't, less than, this is fresh out of the oven.
Yeah.
So
people think we're kidding, but, I sat here before we turned it on, and he was trying to write 10 movies down.
Yeah.
Literally. But yeah, I was going to say the same thing. There wasn't as many, like, quote-unquote, like, blue-chip talent, if we're using draft terms.
And I don't really know like what's going. Like I think about the time that we did this last year, we had a pretty good idea what was going to like win Best Picture, what was very assuredly like going to be in contention for Best Picture. This year, I have no idea.
Yep.
And even looking at like Vegas odds, like the fact that The Shape of Water is. We'll get to The Shape of Water here in a couple seconds, but the fact that is like the odds-on favorite to win Best Picture is pretty incredible right now.
Last year you had...
That is not a compliment.
No, not at all. In no way. Shape, or water, form, whatever. But like last year, you had like La La Land. Everybody was like, that's going to take everything. Moonlight was kind of the dark horse. The year before that, it was like Spotlight's going to take it, But this year was interesting. It had a lot of depth, like we said. And it actually made this list way harder because a lot of times it's like kind of your top 3 for sure, maybe your top 5.
Speak for yourself. I had no problems.
Okay, fine. It was hard for me because normally I'll have my top 5 and then like you kind of sprinkle in interesting ones through the rest. But this one was actually really hard because it was actually harder to do the top end of the list than the rest of it, and it was just hard to keep everything on there. and nail it down to just 10. A couple that just barely missed my list. The Last Jedi. You know, when we saw that at the premiere, I was kind of. It wasn't what I expected, and it took a little bit to kind of digest it, I guess. And right away, I didn't really like the choices. But then I went on vacation, actually, and I was out of the country for a bit. And I sat and thought about it a lot. And, like, some of the choices initially that I didn't really like, I started to think about more and more and more. And I was like, that's kind of interesting, you know? And, like, it kind of buried itself in the back of my head. And then I saw it again and just, like, liked most of it way more. And just, like, kind of liked how different it was. Now, there were still parts of it that I didn't love, but I don't think it was quite enough to put on my list.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah, that was an honor mention for me as well. Like you said, I was a bit disappointed coming out, and then I think we're about in the same boat as far as there were parts of the movie that I really enjoyed. Like, I think the strongest parts of the movies are like the Skype calls between Kylo Ren and Daisy Ridley. Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, their characters.
For sure, yeah.
I was all in on the hologram Luke. I thought that was really well done. I know people like had issues with that as like a choice.
Right.
I didn't. I thought that was pretty great.
That was one of them that I was kind of confused about right away. But the more I like thought about it, the more that was one of them that I really liked.
Yeah. But yeah, it just didn't. It didn't feel like it didn't really feel like a cohesive, like coherent thought. Like the movie wasn't really about one in particular. It just kind of it felt kind of like just. There were things that really stuck out, and I think that obviously, like the trip to Vegas,
right? No one
liked that. The whole general, like, you know, I mean, some people say it's the greatest chase scene since, you know, Mad Max Fury Road. I was not in that.
You weren't
camp.
Actually in that.
Yeah,
group.
I was like, you know what? Actually, this chase scene could be a little better.
Yeah,
I've seen this done better.
Yeah. It was a little slow. It took its time, especially
very
for that.
Slow chase.
Yeah, extremely.
So,
but there were just certain parts, like little things, like General Hux. His strategies were almost perfect in the movie. Like he was extremely smart, and his decisions made sense. And like I really respected that. And like watching it, you're like you really picked up, and you're like this guy like knows what's going on, and if it's in his hands. These guys are done, and like a lot of those decisions I liked, and that's why Snoke preferred him, and then Snoke obviously whatever spoilers, I don't know, whatever, and then Kylo is more impulsive and more like
he's like the
feelings driven.
He's like Khan,
like exactly like Khan. Yeah, that's exactly what
Khan's second in charge. Like Captain Kirk, he's done so.
Right, I know.
Dunzo.
He made the right call every time, and then Khan just said,
"Khan's like,
no,
we're gonna let him. We're gonna let him sit on it. We're gonna let him marinate.
Yep.
I really want to enjoy this one.
And just full.
I just want to make him suffer for just a few more minutes. There's no way he gets out of this. He's
just ridiculous.
Yeah. What else? We probably shouldn't spend too long.
Just a couple more. Dunkirk was. Good, not good enough to make my top 10, you know.
Also, honorable mention for me as well.
John Wick 2, I really wanted to put it on here. Really, just really well-made action, good sequel. Just didn't have the emotional tie as much.
The only thing
one.
I think that kept John Wick off the list for me was the fact that I thought John Wick Part 1 was better.
Right.
And it's always kind of tricky. Like, I enjoyed both of them.
Yep.
But that being said, I like the first one a little bit better. I appreciate that they're continued the franchise and that it's kind of sticking to its root. It hasn't like sold out or anything.
No, it was a fun John Wick franchise movie. That's the best directed action I've seen all year. You know, I mean, just the way they do it is really fun, and you know, just you can tell the work they put into it, which I really enjoy. It was surprisingly good. It was tough. I really wanted to put it on my list, but it just didn't quite do it for me. But I actually surprisingly liked that one a lot. Now I have two that I thought for sure would make my list, but at the end of the day, they didn't. One is Baby Driver. Didn't make my list.
Yeah, that's
could be an
barely
omission.
on mine.
Right. It was just one that Edgar Wright we hold in such high esteem, and it was one that you just go to have a fun time. I did have a fun time, but the narrative was a little bit, I don't know, it just didn't quite grab me as much as I wanted it to. And then, I don't know if it's tainted by Kevin Spacey now, too, a little bit, but whatever. I didn't hold that against it. But then, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I just recently saw it, and that was one that hit me hard, but I had one of the worst theater experiences I've ever had seeing that movie. So I think that might have played a factor in it. I really wanted that one to make it on as well, and maybe in the next month when I have more time to think about it and stuff, maybe I'll
okay.
But all right, so if we want to get into it.
Oh, so I don't get any honorable mentions?
No, you don't. That was your time.
All right.
Okay. Do you have more?
What
do you want to talk about?
I didn't say any.
Look, it's my show, all right? It's not called the Old Leg Show.
Okay. My honorable mentions.
These are all just going to be foreign language films that no one's heard of.
And again, we don't have to spend any time on this. Okay. But Logan just missed the cut.
Okay.
We might talk about that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Mother, I thought was one of the funniest movies of the year. I had a blast.
Yeah.
I thought Mother was great.
The best comedy of the year.
I was really offended. And then with Jennifer Lawrence getting Razzies for it, I'm like, what? Yeah.
I agree.
I was appalled at people's reaction to Mother. If the thesis of the movie is that the world is going to shit, that's it's tough to argue.
Yeah. I feel like
we've seen better days, haven't we?
Fucking A Day After Tomorrow had the same message, and that love
that. Shape of Water, the
didn't make your list.
Aforementioned
didn't make mine.
Potential Best Picture.
I haven't seen it, but
okay. So Luke hasn't seen it. So just a couple of nitpicks, quick here, without giving anything away. I wanted a little bit more fish sex. Didn't get quite enough fish sex. I would say the star of the show is Michael Shannon's Rotting Fingers. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I didn't see Phantom Thread yet.
I haven't seen it either.
If you, P.T. Anderson is my favorite working director. Wow. I really appreciate all of his work, and just haven't been able to see it yet. Just mostly because it hasn't really come to
where we are.
Yeah, where we are, which I think is kind of a shame.
Yeah.
But The Lure is a foreign movie.
Okay. You saw my face.
Just a little. So I only had room on my list for one cannibal movie, and this one didn't make the cut. This one's a mermaid coming of age, kind of coming of age cannibal musical.
Is that becoming a new genre? This cannibal coming of age.
I have one on my list. Okay, wasn't my favorite. It's not quite coming of age, but it's a little bit.
Okay.
It's like Rocky Horror Picture meets La La Land last year, kind of. I thought it was a better musical than La La Land.
Hot take.
So yeah, I told you that I'm coming in with the hot takes.
Yeah.
Anything else here? Again, I thought about putting it on just so we could argue, but The Bad Batch, Luke. I've never known Luke to ever turn off a movie or not finish a movie, but he didn't
finish
this
was the one. I still haven't finished it.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were kidding, because I was all in on it. I was like, this is going to be fun, weird shit, and just halfway through, I just turned it off, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it.
Okay, anything else mentioning?
Jumps out?
Ikaros, A Vision, Amazon River movie, one of my favorite genres. The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
You said that was a tough. I haven't seen
tough
that
watch.
either. Yeah.
Tough watch. Don't want to. Yeah, the Meyerwood stories, really liked
Yeah,
it.
that was going to be on my honorable mention too. I forgot.
It's a little bit. It kind of has that feel where I might not really remember what it's about, soon, but I just felt good watching it.
Yeah,
so,
I think a lot of Noah Baumbach movies are like that. One thing I want to say about that is that movie will be remembered for the acting in it. Adam Sandler puts on a fucking great performance. He's such a good dramatic actor. All the acting is really good. It's going to be remembered for that, and Noah Baumbach's obvious dialogue. But like the thing that struck me was the editing in that was very odd in a good way. Like the way that scenes just cut abruptly. When you're like, whoa, I didn't think that scene was over, and then you just like snap cut to something else. And like some of the choices it took, and like a lot of Noah Baumbach movies, they're not really about like any one certain story. It feels more like real life that way. But yeah, that was a good one too.
And like you said, like I said, I haven't put a lot of thought into this list, and it's living, dynamic, it's breathing. It's a breathing list, and it just changed.
Good.
So
I like that. Just now.
Yep.
Oh shit.
So how about you get us started here?
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah. You want to hit with my number 10?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're running the controls. Not Thursday. It came out almost a year ago now. I think it came out last February. But Logan was one that when I first saw it, I thought this was going to be like at the top of my list at the end of the year. It was just, it was like finally a Wolverine that was rated R.
Just missed my list. Yeah.
It was really good.
I agree. One of, probably one of the best comic book like heroes, anti-hero, kind of like the epitome of like an anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
And for so long they've just been fucking it up.
Yeah.
Because he's not even, he's nothing like the comic book iteration, which, are very violent,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like there wasn't anything
even close to that.
Yeah, and then they finally did it, and it was like, oh,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. You're like, this is finally what I wanted.
Yeah,
and just the way the style they did it, and like they took a lot of like, they did a lot of homages to westerns. It felt like a great old western, which was great.
Right.
And like the hopelessness that was portrayed in that movie hit me so hard, like. Deep
just
in
like,
my heart.
Kind of the idea that like there's hardly any mutants left, and then the mutants that are left, they don't even really have good powers. They're like just, that one, the albino guy was just kind of like, I can't even remember what his power was. Like it was like he was just kind of like
it was something.
Wasn't it like a radar or something like that? Or
radar. He could like detect mutants.
It's like wait, we're like all the cool like mutants with like laser eyes and So
he wasn't cool.
Where's like do
you think
where's
Cyclops
Phoenix?
Was cool? Yeah, I know. What did happen to Phoenix?
So that was kind of cool. I enjoyed it.
And like how his claws don't always come out all the time, and how his like now that he's older, like he kind of is getting this. You kind of find out that his healing factor isn't working the way it used to. He's getting old, and he's getting this whatever infection from the adamantium on his skeleton, which is just such. The way they did it was just such interesting storytelling, because you take this guy who's basically invincible, he has this, he can just heal, and he just has these, and with your friends, you're always like, well, how would you kill Wolverine when you can't kill him or whatever, and just incorporating that and making him more relatable, and and then just having this one little piece of hope,
Right.
you know, in this girl, which sounds cliched, but just the way they did it it worked. It worked really well.
Yeah. And then, they, as far as we know, and this is Hollywood, Wolverine will be back at some point.
He's very marketable, yes.
I have to say one of my better ruses this year after I got done seeing this, I asked Luke, I was like, and I, obviously this podcast, don't like to devolve too much into personal stories, but I was like, did you stay after the credits? Did you see his fist go up in the air? And the two lone blades? He's coming back!
Yeah.
Logan 2! And I think for a second, the fist coming out of the ground, out of the grave.
Yeah.
Were you in?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I missed that one.
Well, yeah, that didn't happen.
But,
I really wish it was as a joke that would happen.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, really good. I think it will age well, and it's kind of detached to be its own story. And I hope we can see more superhero movies like this where they take chances and they do just want to tell good stories. Like, that's just a great story, and they put a lot of care into it, and it's not dumb. Like when we saw, I think we saw The Wolverine together, the one before this that Mangold directed, and it was like cool and interesting for like 2 acts. And that final act, you're like, this is a completely different movie, and it falls apart. Nothing in Logan fell apart, and it was just perfect and well done, and just exactly what you wanted to see. So, if we want to go to...
What's next?
My number 9, excuse me.
23 identities live in Kevin's body.
I have red sock.
He's not well.
I'm too impulsive.
Pardon me, sir. I think you have the wrong car.
Someone's coming for you. You're not gonna like it.
You will be in the presence of something greater. Split, rated PG-13.
So, Split, M. Night Shyamalan. This is a little bit of this came out, I think it might have technically came out like in a limited release in December of last year, but I saw it in January of 2017. I think most people did, so I'm counting it as a 2017 movie.
You got it off before the play clock went out.
Yep.
Play clock went out.
Yep.
And
it's good.
We're going with it.
Okay.
First down.
Thank you. So yeah, Split was. I like M. Night Shyamalan. I liked a lot of
M.
his
Night
movies.
back.
He's back. This one showed it. The one before The Visit was like, okay, he did a smaller project that wasn't complete dog shit. He wasn't necessarily back.
Right.
This one was fucking great.
He's such a genius. He's for years he's been lowering the bar just so he can steadily raise it back up again.
An interesting career mark.
Yeah,
just like he set the bar really high and then he purposely.
Like 20 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, the same guy that did The Happening also did.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that ridiculous? But it's just this, like...
This was This wasn't on my list, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor, love her.
She is becoming...
We first discovered her on The Witch last year. Scary...
Fucking... I
Scariest movie...
Still haven't opened the Blu-ray wrapper.
Don't.
I'm too scared. I don't want Black Phillip to come out.
No, you don't.
I mean, yeah, and James McAvoy gave one of the best performances I've ever seen.
It was cool.
It was so fun.
You needed to like kind of be over the top with this, and he did it.
He did it.
Again, kind of middling after, not quite after the credits, but what do you think about like the whole tie into like the Unbreakable universe, which I know like fans have been clamoring for.
I'm
just making that up. I have no idea if fans have been clamoring for like...
Well, I know Patton Oswalt did like this whole big thing on Screen Junkies that kind of took off on YouTube about, he's obviously a big nerd about how to like franchise Unbreakable, and like this And whatever, fucking spoilers, fuck you guys, whatever. Like, it's a show about movies. We were talking about this movie, fuck you, all right? I don't want to hear it. But this movie was so, like, every part of it was careful and, just like lining up shots and just like very well paced and moving. And then when he starts to become like, they talk about the beast coming and like showing up, and you're like, is this gonna throw the movie off? Is it gonna be too corny? Am I gonna be able to buy into it? And when it makes that turn, it doesn't get too corny for me, and the tie into Unbreakable, everybody always apparently waits for M. Night Shyamalan's twist. Every time I go into one of his movies, I forget that he does that. I just like forget that he has twists. And at the end, you're like, oh shit. And I was like, okay, like, I like this movie, and if you want to tie it in, okay.
I guess,
like,
yeah, I mean, I guess you could say, like, the technical plot twist is the end, is like the confrontation between like the Beast and Anya Taylor's character.
Yeah.
But the hook of the movie isn't the twist. It's like the narrative leading up to understanding why Anya Taylor's character makes the decisions that she
100%.
makes
Yep.
through her backstory and through flashbacks, which flashbacks in movies, not always a fan of, really hard to do well.
Yep.
And I think that's like one of the biggest like growth as like a filmmaker and a story writer is like the idea that like this like progression of her character in what is basically just like a, like a trapped in a room movie is really interesting, and I like it. I really like that he's kind of like come this far as a story writer, because
like he has
it's not about the twists anymore,
right? And it shouldn't be, like it kind of, but like his, and I think I like what you said. And I think his writing does stand out in things like, even in like The Happening, which is such a dumb movie. But like there's a bit about the mood ring. I don't know if you remember that, but like that whole like story element was a pretty uniquely written thing, and I remember being like, that's kind of cool. And like I was just so good to see this movie be like just the shot setups and the, like you said, the careful writing. Just to see the care, and like this movie stands on its own merits. Honestly, maybe my least favorite part of this movie is that it's connected to Unbreakable now, because that's all that people talk about, and they don't really appreciate how good of a movie it is on its own. And I like that it's just a little bit, like a little thing, like, oh, it's technically connected, but it's on its own. It's not, using that or trying to set that up. It has its own story, and it's really, really emotional. Actually, it hits you really hard. So I loved that movie. There was no way that wasn't going to make my list on here somewhere. So I'm going to switch it over to you.
Alrighty.
And we can go with your number 10.
Number 10.
I'm sorry. Please, Taki.
What a weird girl.
Hold on. What's your name? Mitsuha. My name is Mitsuha.
So my number 10 was a title by the name of Kimi no Na wa, or Your Name in English. This was an anime from Japan, directed by Makoto Shinkai. And this guy is basically, whether he deserves the title or not, he's been kind of billed as the next Hayao Miyazaki. The kind of, his films, they look a lot like Ghibli films, and there is a lot of criticism of some of his work, but this is a film. It got a very limited release date in the United States. Hopefully it gets a little bit wider release. I don't know if it'll come in the form of some kind of like Blu-ray, DVD. But yeah, I ended up seeing it in theaters. I really liked it. It's the highest grossing film in basically like Japanese history. It blows all the other ones out, all like the kind of ones you would expect, like the
Spirited Away,
Yeah.
or
all of those,
Yeah.
and I think it's. I don't know if I liked it more than those, but I really liked it as a story. This guy's kind of he's a director that's kind of known for like kind of a one-trick director. Is like his stories all have these themes. In this case, it's a movie about two people who are they're basically time traveling, and they're able to communicate. They're body swapping, but their bodies are in different time lines, and they're communicating via like their cell phone somehow. And it's a love story. There's some good stuff in the middle. There's a little twist towards the end, and yeah, I say go watch it.
I'm pretty sure you put this on last year's list.
I did not.
Are you sure?
No.
On your list, it sounds so familiar from a movie you had on your name. I'm pretty sure it was called Your Name last year.
think so.
Because it was about like.
Did I see it last year?
I'm pretty sure it was on the list because it was like a Japanese animated
No, because
movie.
I saw it the
and
same.
it was like a boy and a girl, and they swap bodies, and it's like a coming of age romantic.
But I saw
animated
it
movie.
the same day I saw Raw.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Raw made your list last year.
Was that last year?
Yeah, you did.
Really?
Yeah, it was, dude.
All right.
I
Well,
totally remember it.
I have it on my. I have it written down on my. Okay.
I see it right here. It says 2016 on it.
Well. Okay. Well,
Sorry.
I had it
The
in my.
word-
It's
on
right,
your list.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
Right there. Your Name. I'm like, oh yeah, I love that movie.
Because I was like sitting here, I'm like, this
that's the one I-
sounds
that's the one I bumped for
really
Baby Driver.
familiar.
Okay.
Well,
Well, again, it still
it's
hasn't
good.
come out in.
that's true because I still haven't seen
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
So I'm just gonna keep plugging it. If it
Until
hasn't
it-
come out next year
it'll
either.
be on your list.
Yeah. Nice catch there.
Thanks.
Nice catch.
I was like sitting here, and the more you're talking, I was like, wait a minute. I'm pretty
vaguely
sure.
remember
Yeah.
him trying to explain this ridiculous plot last year.
Because I
too.
was like, how many Japanese animated body swapping teenage
Yeah.
love story movies can there be in 2 years?
Well, isn't that ridiculous that it still hasn't like even?
Yeah, it is. But
Because I was trying to watch it a couple months ago, and I can't even like pirate it online.
no, yeah, because I've heard some people talk about it like on their best of the list for this year too. But I remember seeing it and being like, I thought that was from last year. But yeah, it definitely hasn't
Okay.
come to the U.S. So
Well,
I'll still allow it. Still go see it though if you can, wherever you can find it.
yeah. Well, ready for correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But my next movie.
Matthias? Matthias?
Number 9 on my list is a movie called Thelma.
Okay.
This is a foreign movie. What you guys heard there, it's a little flashback into the movie. Basically, the movie, it's a coming-of-age movie about a girl who was raised very religious household, and that clip is just it's a flashback to her childhood, and it's a girl and her baby brother is crying, and she may or may not have seen some powers to make people go away. And interesting, but she makes the crying stop. and that's her mom coming down the stairs and wondering what happened to her baby brother.
Oh my gosh.
So Thelma, again, very interesting movie. Basically, the crux of the movie is girl is going to college, so it's her first time on her own, and she starts to have thoughts about one of her friends who's also a girl, and she's kind of like this, waging this war in her head between, you know, what's right, do I act on these feelings towards my friend, and then all at the same time, there's this kind of weird kind of Carrie vibe about what she can do, what she's capable of. She's not really sure herself.
Right.
And it makes for a pretty interesting narrative. This is basically like, it's like if like, it's very art housey. It's like if Ingmar Bergman did Carrie, you know, instead of like being like Carrie, like 80s.
It was Brian De Palma.
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, Thelma.
Interesting.
Number 9.
Do you know what country that came from?
It's a Norwegian film.
Okay. So that'd be Germany then, right?
Yeah, it's like there's very vast spanning shots of the Scandinavian wilderness, which is very nice to look at.
I'm actually all about that.
I recommend it.
You got me?
Thelma, number 9.
Okay.
What do you got next?
My number 8
is...
I'm bringing you home.
How bad can it be?
Can I see your license, please?
He wasn't driving.
I didn't ask who was driving. I asked to see his ID.
Call me Dean and you're hungry, my man. I would have voted for Obama for a 3rd term. Something is weird. It's the people. Something wrong? I can't move. You've been chosen. I'm so scared. Get out. Rated R.
Yeah. So this was another one that I saw. This one came out a while ago too. Was it last?
This was like the
February?
first good movie that I saw
Of the
all
year. Yeah.
Yeah, very early on.
And this was one that I was like, this is probably going to make the top of my list. Jordan Peele from Key and Peele, this directorial debut is great. It's a really interesting horror movie. It was different, and the thing about Get Out that I think probably put it lower on my list was just the I think it's gotten a lot of hype, and I think it's justified, but it's just like part of it was like I think it's a great movie and it has a message that it's trying to get across, but I just kind of sometimes I'm not sure if this is sounding very controversial and I don't like that, but it's just like I loved the movie and I thought it was great and I thought it works as just a horror movie and it works great as like a think piece on, you know, where society's at, but I just kind of think that I don't think it didn't have the synergy that I think it had for a lot of people, as in the sum is greater than the sum, whatever this total is greater than the sum of the parts.
Okay.
For me, it was a lot of great parts, and that equaled a good number, but it wasn't more than that, I guess, for me. It was just great and had a lot of good things to say, but it didn't like transcend that for me, which I think it did for a lot of people. But I like that it's getting a lot of talk. I hope it wins a bunch of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah, Get Out was on my list. I had it a little higher. I really enjoyed this movie. I just kind of all around, I've seen it a couple times, which is, you know, I don't typically revisit stuff, but if it's kind of like had either I'm with other people, I'm like, oh, we gotta watch that movie. It's like if you're picking between stuff, it's like it had a really good like HBO run, which I think helped it a lot.
Yeah.
And like you said, I do hope it wins a lot because just kind of like the combination of people. I think it took it definitely took people by surprise. I mean, you know, from like Key and Peele to like this like crazy, you know, drama which kind of transcends like race and whatnot. You know, it's like
right.
that's a really interesting.
Okay, so did my number 7.
But after that, Hollywood reject us, then we do it all. We make movie! Yeah, The Room! And action! What a story, Mark! Cut! No, don't cut! Do you want to change the line? This is my movie. And this is my life. Who doesn't recognize that guy? It's not gonna happen.
Oops. Let's keep playing.
So we got next?
The Disaster Artist. Great. And we can wait to talk about it if it's higher on your list.
Let's
If you want
see. Oh, it's up next.
Oh, really?
There we go. Yeah.
So, let's talk about it.
All right. Actually, no, wait. It would be one. It's
So
my
it's
number,
my number
8.
7, so it'd be
Yeah. So it's up next.
same.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah, The Disaster Artist. First question: Were you a really big fan of The Room going into it? What was your experience with this movie prior to? Because I know, like a lot of people, it was kind of like their introduction to The Room, which is kind of interesting for me.
Right.
But I think it still kind of works.
Yeah. I was a fan of The Room, not like a super fan like a lot of people are or whatever, but I had definitely seen it before and had like seen it with friends and laughed about it and stuff. And I knew the lore of it, obviously, and that it has this huge following and whatever else. But I've probably seen it a couple times. But yeah, I wasn't like I said, a super fan. But I really liked The Room, and when I heard about James Franco doing this movie and directing it, and starring in it, and it'd be about the making of The Room, I was all in. Like, this was one of my most anticipated of the year, and it was great, honestly. Like, it was honestly a more cohesive movie than I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it would be a little... Yeah, I didn't think it was going to, like, necessarily tell the story that it did. And it made it super relatable and really, really well made. Actually, really, really, really good movie.
Yeah, I have to agree.
I don't think it taints the legacy of The Room at all. Like, I think it kind of plays into
clearly elevates it.
I think so too. Yeah,
like almost past like cult status. Yeah, for me, like it was a movie that I know like like my cousin, he made like pledges for their fraternity, like watch it multiple times in a row.
Really?
Yeah, like just kind of like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like The Room in general, like if we're talking about like good bad movies, my favorite is Troll 2.
You mean our favorite?
Our is both of our favorites. So
high five.
Yeah, and I think that's like the de facto good bad movie, because I get more enjoyment out of Troll 2 than I like The Room. It's funny, but it feels just a little bit. It feels kind of like a chore watching it.
Yeah,
You
there are
know?
definitely like specific scenes that you're waiting to happen.
Yeah. So, and again, we're talking about like a movie that's not very good.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
to say the least. But I think that the thing that I appreciate the most about this movie was that it wasn't mean-spirited in the way that they that you could just like have this be like a recreation of the making of The Room and just make out Tommy Wiseau to just be this big blundering idiot with a bunch of money who doesn't know what he's doing. But clearly, at the very least, one person, maybe two, with Tommy's best friend cared about what they were trying to do, and they did a really good job, Franco and Dave.
Really good.
Dave and James, of like portraying that friendship between them, and then the idea that they really truly cared and they wanted to like make something that was great.
Dave especially. Like, I didn't think he had that acting gear in him. Like, that was really solid dramatic work, honestly. And this wasn't just like a stoner comedy like I think some people thought it was going to be when they saw, you know, Seth Rogen and James Franco on here. But it was just such a well-made movie, and it could have been like more. I think some people thought it was going to be like documentary style, and I'm glad that they didn't do that.
Yeah,
and it made you feel, you know, for these characters, and like you said, I think it definitely elevated it. Super good.
Yeah,
fun. One of the best of the year. That's why it's on our list.
All right.
So
Ready?
Then this would be your 7 now? Would be the next one up?
7.
Okay.
Excuse me, you Peter? Yes, I am. We're in the middle of something. Hello? Nick, what are you doing? We're in the middle of something here. We're in the middle of an exam. Hey, Nick,
the pan and the
wait, please.
How would you like it if I made you cry? How would you like that?
No, I would not. But
Get up.
but
He
Nick,
told me I had to
let-
do this.
Let's go. Let's go.
But he won't make. He has all my stuff. Goes down all my
Nick,
stuff.
shut up then.
This is my work. This is my stuff.
Nick,
Okay.
oh, shame on you.
Shame on me?
You're not helping.
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Janice.
Number 7 on my list. Little movie called Good Time. Good Time. Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
I hope by now, I have both the Twilight Stars on my list. And I think they're both incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to the point. Obviously, this is like, I would still consider like most of what A24 studios do to like be pretty indie.
Yeah.
And they're hard. Still a little bit more difficult to watch than you'd like. But gosh, I'm really looking forward to the day when we start thinking of Robert Pattinson and, as we'll get to later, as like more serious actors. Because like, yeah, I
Do you think they have that itch in them when they just get billed as the Twilight boy and the Twilight girl, and they're like, "Oh, these movies suck, and you suck because you're in them." And they like, do you think they really get that itch to like, I want to do real work and show people that I'm a real actor? You know,
I definitely think like Kristen Stewart takes like more heat just her like kind of persona,
for sure,
and her character in Twilight, who is, I mean, Bella is incredibly boring as a character.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, they are trying to, you know, do interesting things, and they've really had interesting careers. Like another movie that Pattinson was in, Lost City of Z, which I also saw, or King Arthur in the Lost City of Z.
Oh, good lord!
We'll get to King Arthur.
God, I was afraid that you were gonna put it on there.
Yeah, he's just really good, and this movie in particular, it hits a point, kind of like a boiling point, where you're like, oh man, this actually doesn't work out, does it? So yeah, did you want to say anything about Good Time? Was it on your list?
It's higher up on my list.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wait to talk about it.
Cool.
Until we
Yeah.
get there.
Okay, so we can save it till then.
Okay.
All right. So,
is it back to me now?
yeah.
Okay.
Because we knocked out 2 with Disaster Artist and me.
Right. So we'll go.
My destiny is to rule all others.
On November 3rd, we're running out of time. Experience the film critics call a majestic spectacle. It's a triumph.
Asgard is not a place.
It's a people. The boldest Marvel film yet.
Now, those people need your help.
Shall we?
After you.
Thor Ragnarok. Rated PG-13. Get tickets now.
Thor Ragnarok is my number 6.
I'm going to clear out. I'm going to let you
I'm gonna
ISO here.
for a couple
I'm gonna
minutes.
let
so
you
can
cook.
Come back.
Because
I know. Look,
as fans of the show know, I don't see a lot of superhero movies. I'm not particularly fond of them, even though I saw Logan this year.
yeah,
I like that. You could consider Thelma a superhero movie. She has superpowers. So,
like Matilda.
yeah. So
I know, and I knew I was fully ready for this heat to come.
Yep.
But
I came out. I remember we talked about it earlier this year. I saw the trailer and I actually thought, I'm like, I'm like, wow, that kind of looks fun. Like
Mm-hmm.
a kind of like, final boss Thor, like
Sure.
he's like fighting up the spire to, get, I don't know what Thor would want to get.
Yeah.
But maybe he lost his hammer again or something. But there was interesting people in it
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
which I appreciated. And I don't know why I'm talking.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
I knew.
Sell me.
I knew it was gonna be heat, but like I couldn't lie to myself that this was one of my favorite movies of the year, and it was super fun when it was announced because I've always liked Thor, and the Marvel movies. Burdette Dog and I did an expansive episode over the entire Marvel universe, and I remember saying I was excited for this one. The Thor movies, the first one was like good. Not great. It was like there were points of it that were interesting. It was good, but it doesn't really hold up as well, especially now. And the second one was extremely forgettable and just dumb. And so like, and I've always liked Thor like from the comics a lot, obviously. And so like, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna do a third one. And I'm like, I'll probably see it. But then when they announced Taika Waititi as the director, he's one of my favorite directors. His sense of humor just fucking gets me. It's so quick and quirky and interesting and just super fun. And like What We Do in the Shadows is a fucking great movie. And Hunt for the Wilder People was super fun. And like obviously Flight of the Conchords I love. Like just his brand of humor is great. And I was like, that's an interesting choice to do with Thor, because Thor you think of more of like the brooding, strong guy who has Loki and whatever, But I was like, that sounds interesting to me. And, I thought, well, maybe this is going to be like an Edgar Wright situation with Ant-Man where it's not going to quite work. But, like, this movie was so much fun, and his fingerprints are all over it. It's all his style of humor, but it fits really well with Thor, extremely well. It just meshed well as a movie. Jeff Goldblum in this, I could have just let Jeff Goldblum be that character forever, for an eternity. It was so much fun.
That was one of the intriguing things that I liked about it, because there was people that I'm generally interested in, like Tessa Thompson.
She was great.
I've been
Her stock is high.
I've been in love with her since she was talking about Johns.
Johns.
You got a John, this John, that John.
You a John.
Yeah, which
that's
apparently,
a John.
yeah,
he's a John.
He's a John. Yeah. The whole John sketch, I was hook, line, and sinker. Of course, we're referencing Creed.
Right.
I might see this movie, which
You
is
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
If you can do it. There are parts of it. And actually, like Kate Blanchett as the villain is
Again, another
she's
person
good.
that I like.
Yeah, and it's actually like it adds some backstory, and there's not a lot of time given to her, but she's a fun villain, and it's one of the better villains that Marvel's had, really, honestly. And God, what was I gonna say? Oh, the guy Éomer, God, I forget his name now. Carl Urban, underrated actor. He's really good. He actually has a really cool part in this too. Like he's kind of a sort of a smaller character, and like his character arc I really liked a lot, and his I don't know, like that was a really unexpected one where I was like, fucking Carl Urban, man, he's really good and just had a cool part. It's just, this movie is super fun and it doesn't really let up, and there's not really a lot of slow points. And like there were times where I was like laughing really hard out loud, which doesn't happen to me a lot, especially in the theater.
You were like, you were like me, like watching Munger, but with
right,
me,
exactly.
with me and 3 other people in the theater who were horrified.
Right.
Oh, they're eating her baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think in Mother, I was more like, I was like, what the fuck, the whole time. But
real just, belly laugh.
Yeah.
Just
gut busters. Woo! Okay, so my number 5.
didn't I? This is the way that it works. It's 2-3 passes at it. It's a cycle. I said at the beginning.
I'm not doing it again.
But you've got no choice.
I do. I'm going. This is shit.
It is not shit. I wish it were.
I'm not doing it again. I'm fucking going.
No, don't open the door. Don't cross the line. We'll be fucked. Cross the line, we'll be stuck here forever. Please, you just don't know.
But nothing's happened.
It has. You can feel it. I promise you, I will let you talk to your child. I promise you that.
You better.
Number 5, A Dark Song. You were just miming to me that this is your number 5.
Yep.
Dude, that's so awesome. This was like, when I'm doing this list, as I'm typing it up, I was like, oh, shit. And I looked it up, and it came to Netflix in April 2017, which previously had been
Was it
released.
a 2016?
Technically, it was a 2016, but
Okay.
it didn't come to America until 2017.
Sure. Okay.
So I was like, it counts. And
Yeah.
this was my surprise pick.
And yeah,
that
believe it or not, because especially surprising since I just made my list and I'm including movies
Yeah.
that I
This is
put
so
on it
fun.
last year. But yeah, so a movie that we just talked about is called A Dark Song.
You recommended this to me.
I did, and I'm still not sure whether I feel good about that recommendation. We might both be better had we not seen this movie.
No doubt.
So this movie, it's kind of the classic woman loses child. This woman is very determined
Yeah.
and decides that she really, really, really wants to see/speak to her child again. So she calls upon a person who's to quote Whitney Houston, he's got the knowing of a lot of things. That was a Thunderdome reference, for all you kids at home. But yeah, so he decides, well, hey, I can call upon the dead, and yeah, we'll get him. It'd be easy as that. We'll get him on the pod. You say hi, be like, hey, how's it going, son? And
yeah. Hey, thanks.
yeah, so it's a really heartwarming film.
Yeah.
It
was not. Do not. This was one where I remember you recommending it to me. You said that you couldn't sleep one night, and it was like 3 a.m. and you just found this movie on Netflix, and you put it on. And you know what this recommendation honestly reminded me of was when you recommended Mary Tyler Moore to me. Martha Marcy May Marlene. Martha Marcy
Marlene.
Martha Marcy May Marlene. Yeah.
Yeah.
When because you were like, because when you recommend that, you're like, yeah, it's, Liz Olsen, and then you were like, if you're afraid of like cults and home invasion, I was like, I am very afraid of both of those things. And then this, you were like, if you're afraid of like, it's like realistic occult demon summoning stuff, and I was like, yeah, I am very afraid of that.
Yeah. It's quite believable.
Yeah.
In the fact that, so the whole thing with this is that it's called A Dark Song. Most of the movie is this ritual. Who the guy I think for us knowing what the movie is about, you're not really sure which way the movie's going.
Right.
I had a feeling about 20 to 30 minutes in that I knew where the movie was going, and I didn't like where the movie. I didn't like the direction that it was going, because it reminded me of a movie called Compliance, which is basically what the movie is about. A man forcing a woman into like doing progressively worse acts that like put her more in, I guess in this case, peril, or it just I was like, I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
But then it's something different, and it's
right. It's not just torture.
it's worse,
porn.
but it's not like
yeah.
it's a really it's a tough watch.
It
Tough
is,
watch.
and this was one where I was physically, mentally, emotionally shaken by this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I got done with it, and I was shaken to my core, and I went up and I was gonna go with my roommate to hear this guy speak or whatever. He just didn't want to go alone, and I was like, whatever. But so I watched this, and then like I got up and like went to change, and I came back downstairs, and it wasn't even like dark yet, and like I just am walking down. I'm just like looking down at my feet. I'm just so wrecked by this movie. And then he was sitting on the couch. I didn't even see him. And he's like, "All right, you ready to go?" It's like, Jesus Christ! Like I was just so on edge, and it just really got deep. It's like it's kind of like when you get like cold, but it's like a wet cold, you know, like you get water on you, and then like there's the wind blowing, and it just like gets down into your bones, and you just really have a hard time getting warm. It was like that. Like you're just sitting there like
This is a great
you know?
sales pitch.
Yeah, you're gonna have a great time watching this movie.
It's a blast.
But like you told me, I mean, I don't think this is a spoiler, but surprisingly uplifting ending. Surprisingly uplifting ending.
It's like the film runs for, I would say, like probably like 92 minutes, and for 90 minutes it's pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
But like I said, it doesn't necessarily go in the direction that you might think.
Mm-hmm.
And again, don't want to give too much away, but give this one a shot if you're, viewer discretion.
Yep. This one thing quick, the sound design is very good. The sound mixing, the way they use like the piano wire sound, and it really gets in and it gets on that subconscious level that just makes you uneasy.
Just kind of scratching.
Yeah, it really gets under your skin. Anyway,
yeah. So if you want to go ahead and if you want to meet your guardian angel,
so to speak, yeah.
There you go.
That's
the movie for you. So yeah, that was number 6 for me. So now we move to number 5 for me.
So why am I the only one making them?
Because I don't want what you want.
Because you want to stay here? Why?
Sorry about that.
Turns into a dance party at the end.
So that clip was really quiet to start. All right. Thank you, YouTube.
YouTube just trolled us so bad.
So my number 5 pick was a movie called A Ghost Story. Casey Affleck, starring beside Rooney Mara. Casey Affleck. I never got to the bottom of this if he was the guy under the sheet the whole time. So,
okay.
Spoiler alert. Actually, no, this isn't a spoiler.
What was the name of this movie?
A Ghost Story.
Okay.
So what happens to Casey Affleck? He dies.
What?
Yeah.
So,
pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and this one is an incredibly slow burn.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you see this movie at all?
I missed it.
Yeah.
Because it did come for a bit,
yeah,
but it was
quite brief.
You got to catch them
quite brief
while they're here. This was another 8/24, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a movie. It's a movie about loss and how people deal with loss. And this isn't a new concept, but I think the new concept that I thought was really interesting is the idea that how the dead deal with loss. Because the movie, even though we follow Rooney Mara and kind of like what happens after her husband passes away, the movie is shot through the eyes of, basically Casey Affleck under a white sheet, which, might be a dark horse for special effects of the year.
Could be just
Who knows?
one white
Yeah.
sheet.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
that was a realistic ass ghost.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Interesting.
a really cool song that plays during this movie, which I appreciated. Some other highlights: Rooney Mara eats an entire pie in like a full sitting.
I've heard about that scene,
pie scene.
quite a few times.
Yeah.
It's just like unbroken.
It's
5
it's
minutes.
it's worth the price of admission. So if you're into pie eating, if you're into laborious, brooding, episodic almost looks at
Okay.
what the dead do after they die, then
That's interesting.
check this one out. So that was my 6-5. So now we are back to you.
No mercy. No peace. If we lose, it will be a planet of apes.
So my number 4 is War for the Planet of the Apes, starring Bad Ape. So good.
Strong
Apes
together.
Apes together, strong. So
Yeah.
good. This was one that I was.
Can this be the last one of these? Like, I like
Yeah,
this movie,
I think
but
I think it probably is.
are we at like a good stopping point?
I'm
Yeah.
perfectly satisfied. Like
Yeah.
this was like.
It wasn't on my list, but I liked it.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, like Dawn. I think Rise was interesting, and it had James Franco, and like then
I think that one's my favorite.
okay.
I don't remember 2.
I
Or was this 2?
this was 3.
Okay.
So the
there's-
first one's Rise, which I like Rise, but it's a little bit halfy for me. It's like the first half and then the second half, and the first half is like gets kind of slow. That's the James Franco character stuff. It works, but then the second half is like where you really get into the meat of the foundation of the what becomes this franchise. And then Dawn was in 2014, and that was when they were in the forest and they had the war paint on, and the apes, and they were actually on horses now. And
Oh, that was the Gary Oldman one,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So that was really, really good. And then with that one, you were kind of like, I loved all the ape stuff. Why can't this movie just be all apes? I'm sick of these humans because they suck and they're annoying. And then this one was pretty much all apes. You
All
know,
Apes and Woody Harrelson.
and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
You know, so
Which is fine.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
And this was one where I honestly went into this thinking, you know, I really like Dawn, but I thought they could do really good with War. But like Dawn, the way that people loved Dawn and the place that it took it to, I was kind of like, I could see that if this peaked, you know, at that point, and I saw the trailers for this, and I thought, wow, it looks great. But, you know, I don't know. And then I saw it, and I was like, wow, this is pretty much exactly what I wanted. I didn't realize I wanted it until I came out of this. And some people say, well, there wasn't really much of a war in this movie for the plan. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I guess that's an argument you can make, but it worked really well for me. Shots of wet forests, I realize, are great on celluloid, on film. Look
Yeah.
fantastic. And
The opening scene for this movie.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like just all the cinematography for it was beautiful. Obviously Andy Serkis, everything that has been said about his performance. And it was just really good, and one of my probably the best theater experience I had this year was seeing that in at the Alamo in Omaha. I had coffee and popcorn and watched this movie, and it was fucking great. But there's not a lot more to be said about it.
Yeah. Surprisingly, a surprisingly good all-around series. For as bad as these titles are,
They're so
for
long.
each movie, and for a series that's seen, more bad movies
Yeah.
than
Yep.
there are good.
A lot of bad.
From,
and it
like-
became a joke
Yeah.
of itself, you know.
So, yeah.
Kudos.
I'm good with it.
And I'm done. Like, I don't need any more Apes movies. These are great. I'm good, you know? We don't need any more. We've seen them all.
Yeah.
So then my number 3...
Right?
What's the plan? Guess we're about to find out. Bring it to me. Blade Runner 2049, rated R.
Blade Runner 2049. We did a whole episode on it,
Yep.
so we don't have to, like, dive super deep into the semantics of it. I know walking out of it, I was like, wow, that was a really long movie for one. Denis Villeneuve, my favorite working director, he's done all A+. His career is pretty much spotless. And obviously, if Roger Deakins doesn't win a fucking Oscar for this movie, he's been nominated, 11 times? He's never won? He's got to win for this.
I mean,
Are you
it's
kidding
gonna
me?
be between this and King Arthur, I think. King Arthur, Sword in the Stone.
Stop. this stone
King
sword.
Arthur and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah. King Arthur and the...
King Arthur and the Goblet of Fire.
So bad.
We haven't gotten to King Arthur yet.
No. I refuse to allow you to have it on your list.
Yeah, this was my number 3 as well.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, Blade Runner, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
We devoted pretty much a whole episode
So
to
if you
it.
want to hear our, like, full thoughts, that was, like, right after we saw it.
Mhm.
So pretty much. So go listen to that episode.
Yeah.
We dived deep into that.
Just going back to it, I saw it a bunch of times. I think I saw it a couple more times in theaters. I really enjoyed it. I think, I don't know if we talked about it off the pod or just kind of talking about the logistics of it and knowing that it was a commercial success, but it wasn't like a booming commercial success.
Right.
And I hope that we continue to see guys like Denis Villeneuve are able to make things like this because there wasn't anything like it, and there's not going to be anything like it for a while.
I agree.
So
yeah. So
hats off. For
100%.
people that say it's too long or the story doesn't make sense, I'm like, well, then it's just not your bag of tea. But if you're a fan of film, lighting, staging,
yeah, I mean, like I think
shot for shot,
like we said, you watch this
it's
and
a
you're
marvel
like,
to look at.
You're like, oh, I can't do that.
And I feel
people are better.
Yeah,
than me.
I feel bad for those that didn't get to witness it in theaters because it was truly there aren't a whole lot of and you talked about Dunkirk earlier. That's another movie that is it's another level when you see it in theaters,
right? Because the sound of both of these movies, especially Blade Runner,
it was made to be seen in theaters, and I think that's something that should be mentioned.
Yep, so I agree. So then you're number 4.
Number 4.
Waiting. I'm gonna go.
What are you waiting for?
My brother died here. My twin brother died in Paris.
An accident?
No. No, heart attack. I actually have the same malformation.
Does it scare you?
No. I didn't scare him.
You're staying here to mourn.
No, I'm waiting. I told you I was waiting.
What are you waiting for?
So we made this oath. Whoever died first would send the other a sign.
Number 4 on my list is a movie called Personal Shopper.
The aforementioned K-Stew.
The aforementioned. We said we get to her. Kristen Stewart. This is the second movie that she's done with director Oliver Assayas. And so the first movie they did maybe 2 years ago, maybe, years are just arbitrary numbers for me now since these same 10 movies are going to be on my, film as I, lose my mind.
Yep.
So, yeah, you can just pretty much run this back next year and it'll be...
Let's just play it back. It'll be the same 10.
Yeah. She did a film with him called Clouds of Sils Maria. So it was a really, really interesting film that kind of introduced Kristen Stewart back into like the zeitgeist of, oh yeah, she's a super serious actress. And then now this movie, which is what we got from the clip, is basically her brother died and she, again, trying to communicate with the dead.
Yeah.
It's usually a little spooky. Much easier than a dark song. We're not going into the we're not getting that gritty, but again, same concept. Communicating with the dead, except that she also is like a personal shopper for this very rich woman in Paris.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think this one got a little bit mismarketed. Or at least advertised, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just a shopping movie with this girl." Like,
it's not
go see
even like the movie that I just described. It's not even that. There's other things that happen in this, and again, I recommend both of the movies, Clouds of Sils Maria and this one, because I think that said director Oliver Assayas is quite talented. So,
a Frenchman.
Yes, this is French.
Okay,
so yeah. And then my number 3 was Blade Runner, and then so that brings it to
my 2.
From executive producer Martin Scorsese and director Ben Wheatley.
What do you say we check out the merch?
It's not what he ordered.
Free Fire is wickedly funny.
Stop shooting that!
And wildly enjoyable.
I forgot who's on him. Now we're cooking.
Free Fire in cinemas March 31st.
Free Fire came out in April. It was again A24 only came out for like a week, and I remember texting you and saying, "Hey, I'm not sure what movie to see. Free Fire's here," and you're like, "I would see that." And I saw the trailer, and for like whatever reason, same with Swiss Army Man last year, I just saw the trailer and I was like, that could probably go either way for me,
Yeah.
But this movie just is a shootout, and that's basically all it is.
Yeah.
It's a 90-minute shootout, and for me, if you put a movie set in the late 70s in Boston, and you got the leather coats and the people are cool, like, I'm probably gonna enjoy it, or I'm gonna, you have my attention,
You add Brie Larson.
You add Brie Larson. You add the best Armie Hammer performance. He should get nominated for this one.
You sure?
I'm sure. He's got
Positive?
He's got a beard, man. He grows a beard, and he's just his name is Ward.
Can we agree that Armie is he's best uncle?
No, yeah, of all time.
He's the best.
The best.
Yeah.
I don't think any other uncles compare.
Another I guess as I did see Call Me by Your Name. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a little bit too long, but maybe one too many bike rides.
Sure.
Could have also been called like, "Hey, you want to go swimming again today?" Yeah. Hey, are you up to anything? No. No.
Bike ride? Yeah.
Bike? Yeah.
Bike, swim?
Yeah,
bike
yeah.
and swim? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
again,
a lot of swimming, a lot of biking.
Yeah.
Pack your swimsuit if you're going to Italy for the summer, because
that's all there is to do.
they do a lot of swimming.
Yeah, but I just really enjoyed
Yeah.
this movie. There's a lot of quips.
I didn't see it.
Really?
So bad.
You never
No,
saw
I
it?
didn't see this one.
I think you'd like it. What I liked about it was this whole movie it didn't divulge into flashbacks, and there wasn't a lot of exposition. There was enough to get you there, and you're like, yeah, that's exposition. But the character development and the story progresses through the quips and just the shootout in general. Super fun, and this is probably one of the more, like, you could say, quote unquote shallow movies. There's not a lot of emotional depth to it, but that worked perfectly for me. And actually, I found the emotional depth at the end. It really hit me hard, and this is just a super fun movie, and I feel like this is one that you can just fucking throw on at any time and just have fun. And it was just one that I was like, yeah, I'll go see it. There's a huge cast, a lot of really great actors, and I came out of it just like, man, that's so cool. Like, and it's a bottleneck, it all just takes place in that one warehouse, one shootout. Super fun, and then my number one, you talked about a bit earlier, was actually Good Time with Robert
Tell me about
Pattinson.
it. What's that?
So
I'll give you your Good Time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
like I said, this movie was like 4 different things.
Yep.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay.
You got the floor.
So Good Time was one that I heard literally nothing about, which is pretty unique in our day and age, especially for us when we keep up with movies. I just literally was looking at what's playing in our theaters, and you gotta catch them. Like with Free Fire, I saw it twice. The only weekend it came here, I saw it twice. But like a lot of these movies come and go, and I just saw this one called Good Time, and I was like, the hell is that? And I was like, I'll go see it. I didn't know if it was good or bad. It had the name Good in it, so I was like, there we go. Obviously it's going to be good. I didn't even know who was in it. I knew literally nothing about it, which is a very unique thing, which is one of the reasons I went, because I was like, I don't know anything. I'm going to go in completely fresh. And it hooked me, and I loved it. That opening scene is just fucking great. I love it. And just the whole... Like, this is in one of the genre that I had kind of talked about before on the pod, that I'd like to hash out what it really is, but I found out about myself that I like movies where it's like, it's just one guy, and he's against the grain, and you don't really know that much about him, and it's really just like one camera on him, just a steady one, and it's just, he's just going through this one night trying to do this thing, and it just hooked me. And the pacing is a little odd, but I really enjoyed it. Like, it isn't your normally paced movie, and I actually loved that. There's one scene in this, which I think you know what I'm going to say, that my mouth literally open. I was so shocked. I was like, whoa, like, I've never seen that in a movie, and I am not comfortable with it. And it was like, holy shit. And just the twists and turns that happen in it are unexpected, but they feel earned. And, I think a lot of people don't... I would assume most people seeing this probably don't like the ending, but that was the exact right ending for this movie. And, maybe this is one that doesn't hold up and won't be as good. Like, the more you see it, maybe it's just a one-trick pony, but this movie just blew me away from start to finish, and it was the one that I didn't have any hang-ups about it. I just, went in, and it literally was just wow. It just took me on this ride, and I loved every second of it.
I can see the criticism about the pacing, but at the same time, the way the story is told, it shouldn't be like this movie that, builds and builds and builds, and that's this,
right.
climax, because it's, it's not, a well put together plan on the part of Robert Pattinson.
Not at all.
And his character.
It's all fly by the seat of your pants.
Right. And like we said earlier, it's mostly it's a heist movie that's mostly dealing with, trying Robert Pattinson, trying desperately to get his brother back and out of jail, and you can tell that he's towards the end of the movie, I don't know if you're more rooting for him or less, because you've kind of gotten to know him more, but it's it's a really like fun ride.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you, and I think it's totally worthy of being, at the top of any list because it kind of hits those notes for me, like personally too. Like you get the synth, you get like the kind of neon colors, you get the exploding money bag, it's just like, and it's. I always love like movies where like there's a point in this movie and it's very early on where you're just like, wow, like Robert Pattinson, he's like the Liam Neeson of this movie. He's just like one step ahead of everyone, and then you kind of realize it's not it.
It's all just kind of a show.
He's just kind of like going. Yeah. It's like, all right, well,
and you figure out that he's a flawed protagonist, and he doesn't really get redeemed in this movie. Like he's kind of a piece of shit, and he just is, and he keeps doing shitty things because he's a bad person, and it doesn't really. It ends the way it should, and he got what he deserved it, but it was, the twists and turns that it took were just so unexpected and so fun. I just had a great time.
Yeah.
Or a good time.
All right. My number 2, it's a movie we already talked about, Get Out.
Ooh.
So Get Out, again, we've said we're not the only ones that have like sung its praises.
Yep.
But yeah, just as a movie that's kind of like introduced us to, is it Michael Kaluuya? Is that
sounds right.
Yeah.
I knew him from Sicario.
Yeah. Yep. Obviously, Allison Williams.
That's your girl. That's your girl.
I mean, she's not like, Brie Larson, Alicia Vikander status.
Okay.
But
she's a solid sub.
But she's
though.
up there. And I mean, she's basically just playing like, she's playing her character from Girls, and it's incredible. Yeah. I love it. But yeah, altogether, love this movie. I'm excited to see what Jordan Peele, comes up with next because I think he's pretty promising. And so it brings us to
the moment we've all been waiting for.
Jonah Ruiz, Len Fance-New. Well, I saw your Thanksgiving show. My name's Ladybird.
It's weird you shake hands.
Yeah. I'm friends with Jenna, and she's always talking about how great your band is, so I wanted to check it out.
Yeah, Jenna's hog tight.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see you at the Deuce or something, huh?
Sure. See you at the Deuce.
Hey, I'm not paying you to flirt.
I wasn't flirting.
Wish you had been.
My number 1. It's a movie called Lady Bird.
From the Ashes.
Lady Bird. Starring... You ready for it?
Yep.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Saoirse Ronan.
Yep, I think it's Saoirse
Ronan.
I think it's Saoirse.
No, it's not. 100%.
Okay, that's fine.
You can go on to her SNL thing and she'll tell you how.
Saoirse? She says Saoirse?
It's Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan. Okay. It all blends together.
Saoirse Ronan. Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Because I was saying like Saoirse Ronan.
Right. I've heard like Saoirse Ronan and shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah. So now that we got past that, that's like one of the hardest like barriers for this movie is, but no, this movie, it's I think it's kind of weird that it's my favorite movie of the year because it's mostly a movie about like female bonding.
Yeah.
Which, I guess I don't really qualify as the target audience, but it definitely hits like kind of my age range as far as like the mid 2000s and going to high school at that time.
Okay, yeah.
It did have one of my favorite scenes of the year, the high school dance in which Bone Thugs and Harmony is playing in the background. I thought that was like something that could only come from my brain.
Yeah, you were like, wait, did I direct this?
Yeah. And like, not to say that I'm like any kind of like genius or
Greta
anything
Gerwig.
like that, because Greta Gerwig is,
it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
For her.
This is a movie, I didn't really know much about it either. I thought Greta Gerwig is in it. Like, I've seen some of her other stuff, and I'm like, obviously it's, very kind of up her alley, but I was like, I really appreciated it, and just like kind of the idea of another coming of age. Maybe I'm a sucker for coming of age, but I can't really say anything negative about it, like start to finish. I think I don't know. Maybe you could say that it's like, it's not, doesn't really end in any particular place, and maybe she didn't learn anything, but maybe that's the point,
right?
So
yeah, this is probably the most glaring omission. I haven't seen it, and this is probably the closest thing we have to like a blue chip Oscar, contender is the one that gets talked about the most. But when you saw it, I remember you telling me, you're like, yeah, it was really good. And I know you usually dive in more, so I knew that there was probably more there too. I'll tell you what I think about when I think about this movie. I think of pastels. I think of a pastel color palette. I think of soft like pinks and yellows, and just like, to be, maybe Wes Anderson-y influence, but just kind of hipster bullshit. Not that that's bad. I mean, I want to see it, but like self-indulgent. I'm not. Again, I haven't seen it, and I want to, but that was my initial like thing. But then like it got so much hype, I was like, okay, obviously it's not like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think like all of the performances are really good in it. Like Saoirse Ronan, obviously she carries the whole thing. She's in every scene. She's great. Timothy Chalamet, who was also in Call Me by Your Name with Army, great performance. Our guy from our young Lucas Hedges from
Manchester. Yeah.
He's in it. Really good.
Okay.
And his character is really interesting too. It's like kind of one of the very interesting character arc for kind of a like binary character in this movie. Not binary, but like very much a side story.
Huh.
But
okay.
He's good, and he's still coming.
Good to hear. Yeah.
Because
he was also in 3 Billboards actually. He has a really small
I
part.
heard about that.
And it was fine. But it was just kind of like, they just put him in there because he's a big name. Like, it wasn't that great of a part. It was just like, hey, he's in this. Really, anybody could have played it. So I was a little bit nervous about his, like, career trajectory. But it's good to hear that he was really good in that, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Reasons why it's number 1 for me. I mean, it's like, I think I said I was thinking about it on the way up here. Yeah. I mean, it's surprising that I was thinking about it. But... It's kind of, I started like thinking about the same things that I thought about with Moonlight, whereas like one of my favorite parts about Moonlight was my favorite movie last year.
Yeah. And
one of my just real things that I took out of that movie was like it was a movie about real people just living their lives, and there didn't need to be like a story or like a, it was just kind of compelling like the way it was. And I thought the same thing about
real.
this. It was just normal people working through their lives, and I think there's like something to be said about that and that kind of narrative.
Which sounds like the most boring thing, but that's usually the most compelling. If you can get it like to sound
when done
feel
right,
realistic, yeah.
And granted, like this movie has been done a million times, and a million times it's really sucked.
Right.
And this one doesn't. So
Well, I'm glad to know that it didn't turn out like... I don't know why I have these, like, hang-ups on it, beforehand, but it's just what comes out of me. But, like, I was afraid that this might be, like, turn into one of, like a... Like, kind of in the vein of, like, Juno, like a young teenage girl, and then it becomes, like, this pop culture thing. And then all of a sudden, like, it's that weird, like... quirky, like, you have to kind of, like... And I like Juno, but it's, like... You know what I mean? Like, it kind of... It's not...
This is a drama. Yeah, Juno's a comedy. Like, I really laughed
I don't know
Juno.
if you knew that, Luke.
Yeah, Luke. Let me tell you something.
She gets pregnant, right? And then they say something about home skillet, and, she has the thing. And Michael Cera's in it, and...
Juno's really funny. And
It
this
is funny. It's a good movie.
Lady Bird's
I'm
funny.
not shitting
but
on
it's
Juno
not, like,
either.
it's not
I don't
really,
know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Though.
You know what
it's
I mean?
kind of in the same vein, like kind of
Yeah.
shot through the same lens. But yeah, that was my number one.
That's really surprising, actually, in a good way. I was excited to hear your
Are you
list.
mad?
No, I'm
Good.
not mad. I would never be mad.
I'm not gonna post this.
I would be so pissed if fucking King Arthur was on as number one. I honestly thought you were gonna troll me, so I was just waiting for that shoe to drop the whole time. I was like, that
It's
you
like,
better fucking not.
He's like, little does he know I haven't been recording for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was ready. I turned it off. Oh my god.
Yeah. Honorable omission.
The honorable.
Yeah.
King Arthur and the Book of Secrets.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, that
Wow.
about does it.
Well, that was fun. I'm glad we got to do it.
Till next year.
Till next year, we'll probably see, your name. If it's not
Your Name. I'm really looking
tell
forward
it.
to seeing the Neon Demon.
Yeah, the Neon Demon. Right. Oh my
Excited.
god. Yeah, the lobster again, sure.
Yep.
Oh, well, I guess we're already outroing, but It Comes at Night was another honorable mention for me. I'd like to see that again. But let us know what you thought of our list. Tell us what your lists are. You can find me on Twitter at LukeLarson89. You can find this podcast on Facebook and Twitter, either at L Squared or L2 Podcast. We're on SoundCloud, YouTube. Hit us up. Let us know. Old Legs, do you want to be found out there? No. That was just deuces. Until next time. Peace.